Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Technomosity, dedicated to providing you with information on technology. My name is JP, and I've decided to change the format of the video podcast episodes to just podcast-style episodes. And by this I mean I will be making each episode with the usual theme intro, and then, the theme intro, and then giving audio commentary in each episode with no background music, and ending each episode with both the video and podcast outro commentaries combined. The latter, which will have background music. Episodes posted on YouTube will just have the Technomosity logo in the video with the audio commentary to go along with them. Episodes will still be around 5 minutes long, maybe 10 or longer, depending on the material. I've come to this decision for various reasons, mostly due to the efficiency at generating new episodes. Now, my goal is to post content on Technomosity, whether it's a video, an article, etc., at least fairly regularly. Regularly meaning at least once or twice a week, if not a little more, And the amount of time and resources to make the videos, along with managing other content as well as managing time for things outside of Technomosity on top of that, has just been exhausting. On top of that, I've also been trying to contact the individual who was working on the script for this episode on numerous occasions over the course of these past several months, and they just never got back to me. So while they did contribute a considerable portion to the information covered here, and thank you so much for that if you're tuning into this, they never quite finished it, and I've therefore taken the liberty of finishing said script myself, and will now provide the commentary for it here to distribute to the world. Thanks again for contributing, and I hope you all enjoy this episode. Alright, so the topic of this episode will be on the computer. More specifically, this will be on the history of the computer and how it has been used and even changed and or expanded upon over time. Now, this isn't going to cover the entire spectrum of the computer and its history and all its, details, but more of a sort of general overview touching on some key points. So the term computer dates back to the early 17th century and meant, quote-unquote, one who computes, in reference to people who performed mathematical calculations. These early human computers, if you will, were often hired in teams to work on a solution to the same problem and thus provide error checking to the process. Many mechanical tools existed to assist these computers in their tasks, such as the abacus. The abacus, or counting frame, was in use in the early civilizations of what is today the Middle East and China. Now, using the abacus was a simple matter, as the tool is designed with sliders that the operator moves along rods to track numerical values. The abacus developed in these regions often used numbers based in factors of 2, 3, and 5 for calculations. This ancient tool was in use long before the widespread adoption of the Arabic numeral system that is in use today. With this tool, a human computer could calculate any number of mathematical problems from simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The dust abacus utilized a flat stone covered in sand to mark calculations based on words or letters and later numbers. Early counters would use these tools to track stocks of food and other resources for the leaders of their land and as a means to calculate taxes that would be collected from the subjects of the land where they resided. The abacus is still in use today as a tool for teaching young children arithmetic by merchants in the developing world, or by those who have visual impairment and find using a modern calculator difficult or impossible. Other early computers existed to perform tasks not directly related to mathematics. The inventor Ismail al-Jazari, who lived from 1136 to 1206 AD, is credited for creating the first programmable analog computer called the castle clock, quote-unquote. This was an astronomical clock that sat around 11 feet high and displayed not only the time, but showed the solar and lunar cycle, and would play music when levers that were operated by a camshaft would move. The clock would activate on the hour with figures that would appear from behind doors, and 2 falcon automatons that would lean forward and drop a metal ball into a vase with a symbol. The sound that was generated could be heard from far away to signal the change of the hour. What made this device the first programmable computer was the ability to reprogram the length of the day and night to keep the clock updated as the seasons changed. The clock used a regulated flow of water to keep time and control the various features of the clock. This was accomplished using a complex system of valves and chambers to provide continual water pressure to maintain the correct time. In 1623, a German mathematician by the name of Wilhelm Schickard invented a mechanical calculator based on earlier works of Abacus-like devices. Schickard's machine was described by Johann Kepler to show how the calculator could be used for creating astronomical tables. The machine could add and subtract 6-digit numbers, and a bell was attached to the machine that would ring to indicate an overflow of this digit limitation. This device is thought to be the world's first mechanical adding machine, but because it made use of a single tooth gear to complete calculations, it would often jam. Unfortunately, Schickard stopped building these machines after one of his devices was destroyed in a fire sometime in the year 1624. Schickard's machine would remain lost to history until a working replica was built in the 1960s. Another inventor of early mechanical calculators was Blaise Pascal, who in 1642 began working on his own calculating machines. Pascal worked in collection with his father and determined to create a machine that would aid in the calculations. After 3 years of tireless work, he invented a working calculator that was called Pascal's calculator, or Pascaline. 23 to 50 of these devices were built over a 10-year period, and 9 of them survive in European museums today. This calculator was built around the French currency of the time called the livre. And again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing these. Just feel free to leave a comment if I'm mispronouncing anything. I believe this is how they're pronounced as far as I know. But again, don't hesitate to point me out on it. A single livre was made up of 12 deniers, Deniers. Each denier was divided up into 20 sols. The devices could only perform addition and subtraction, with multiplication and division being done with a series of these operations. The operations were performed by manipulating 8 dials that could add up to 8 long sums. A Pascaline was designed to carry the decimal unit by rotating each gear 1/10 of a revolution, except for the deniers and sols when the previous gear had completed 1 revolution. The inventor Wilhelm von Leibniz was a German mathematician in the 17th century who perfected the binary system, which is used by modern systems to make everything from our personal computer to Google servers, and even the internet, possible. In 1671, he created a calculating machine called the step reckoner, which represents numbers in decimal form on 10-position dials. The step reckoner expanded on the Pascaline machine by allowing the multiplication operation by repeated addition and shifting. Leibniz is also credited with inventing the Leibniz wheel, or stepped drum, in 1673. This device is a cylinder with sets of teeth of incremental lengths that is combined with a counting wheel to perform calculations. This device would be used in later mechanical calculators. Thomas de Colmar invented and patented the Arithmometer in the year 1820. The machine is designated as the first digital mechanical calculator and was reliable enough to be used daily in an office. The calculator could add and subtract 2 numbers directly, and could also do multiplication and division by using a movable accumulator. The Arithmometer was built from 1851 to 1915 and was the first commercially successful mechanical calculator. It was also the only mechanical calculator in production from 1851 to 1890. Due to its robust design and accuracy, it signaled a transition away from human computers to calculating machines for performing complex mathematical operations. The accuracy of the device provided a greater efficacy than the previous methods of using teams of humans who could still generate errors in their calculations. Throughout production, various models produced could handle different capacities of digits from 10, 12, 16, and 20, thus the calculator could deal with numbers in the quintillion range. 1 quintillion, that is 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. Yeah, that's a pretty big number. We'll leave it at that. With this kind of power, Mr. Colmar's invention found itself of immense value within the financial institutions of the world, and with persons involved in the sciences. The machine was divided into 2 parts for input and output. The bottom part is composed of sliders that are used for inputting the value, with a control lever on the left to select which mathematical operation you wish to perform. A simple crank on the right side of the slider is used to perform the operation that has been set into the machine. The output of the operation was held on the topmost display along with the display of the current operation being performed, thus you could add or subtract from the previous total. A lower display shows the number of operations performed based on what operations you performed. This display section also housed reset buttons for these displays to clear the output. While modern calculators sit in our pockets, or more often than not, are a simple tool that comes installed in our favorite smartphone, Thomas's Arithmometer was a desktop calculator. Jumping ahead to more modern times, the computer has evolved into something much more, with computers now being able to perform calculations much quicker than in the past. And with each passing year, it seems like they have only gotten noticeably faster. A modern computer consists of at least one processing element, typically what's referred to as a CPU, or central processing unit, in the form of a metal oxide semiconductor, or MOS for short, microprocessor, along with some type of computer memory, typically MOS semiconductor memory chips. The processing element carries out arithmetic and logical operations, and a sequencing and control unit that can change the order of operations in response to stored information. Peripheral devices include input devices such as keyboards, mice, joysticks, etc., and output devices such as monitors, printers, etc. On top of that, input-output devices that perform both functions. For example, the 2000s era touchscreen. Peripheral devices allow information to be retrieved from an external source, and they enable the result of operations to be saved and retrieved. These computers come in a variety of forms, including the popular mouse, keyboard, and case setup. The case being which stores these processors and memory chips. Laptops, which include an all-in-one foldable keyboard, screen, and case, and mobile devices such as smartphones. Modern computers transfer information through a series of electrical wires for either moving information to another area within memory or sending it over a network. These networks use mutually agreed protocols and signal systems. There are two parts to this process: how the bits are exchanged and how they are understood. For information to be exchanged, a program has to communicate with the operating system, which encloses each chunk of information in another language which contains the address and sequencing information, so the rest of the system can figure out how to reassemble the chunks into the original information. This is done through the TCP/IP, or Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol, which is a networking standard first developed by the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA for short, from the 1970s to the 1980s, which connects a diverse range of networks together to be able to communicate and transfer information between one another. These chunks of information must also be converted into electrical or radio signals and sent to the next leg of the system. At each leg of the added address, information may be added. At the receiving system, the process is reversed. The Internet, another widely used feature of modern computers originally proposed by DARPA, then ARPA, or just Advanced Research Projects Agency, who called it ARPANET, uses a client-server setup. The client is the computer that either sends the information or receives it, and the server is where the information the client is trying to access is stored for them to be able to use for a variety of means. Information is transferred through wires or radio waves. This information can get transmitted over a wireless connection in the form of what is widely referred to as Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi involves devices that network through a wireless access point to each other, as well as to wired devices and even the Internet. Wi-Fi's point of origin is often debated. It is widely speculated that Wi-Fi was first developed by the late actress and inventor Hedy Lamarr. At the beginning of World War II, Lamarr and composer George Antheil developed a radio guidance system for Allied torpedoes, intended for using frequency-hopping spread spectrum technology to defeat the threat of jamming by the Axis powers. Although the U.S. Navy did not adopt the technology until the 1960s, various spread spectrum techniques are incorporated into Bluetooth technology and are similar to methods used in legacy versions of Wi-Fi. The Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, or more commonly referred to as the IEEE, or IEEE if you will, developed the 802 protocol technical standard for Wi-Fi to allow it to work effectively. Tim Berners-Lee would also take the concept of the Internet and develop what would be deemed the World Wide Web, a global community for sharing information around the world. The WWW, or W3 as it's also called, is an information system where various resources like files or documents are identified by the Uniform Resource Locators, that's URLs for short, which may be interlinked by hypertext and are accessible over the Internet. The resources of the W3 are transferred via the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, and may be accessed by users by a software application called a web browser and are published by a software application called a web server. With the advent of the World Wide Web, information has been accessed easier and faster than ever. This same transferring of information on a global scale would go on to serve as models for social media, which involves interaction between users to facilitate the creation or sharing of information, ideas, career interests, and other forms of expression via virtual communities and networks. In all, with the evolution of the computer over time, we have gone from being able to perform mathematical calculations to interacting with others on a daily basis. Discussions about the next step for computers and the role they will play in our everyday lives have been underway, with topics including a computer's implementation of artificial intelligence, or AI, to allow them to learn or understand the processes without direct human input, and attempts to automate processes more efficiently. Both virtual and augmented reality, that's VR and AR as they're commonly referred to, have been discussed as well, involving the ability for humans to interact with a virtual environment, that's VR, or with virtual implementations or bits into the real world, the latter being AR. It is anticipated that computers will only continue to play a huge role in our everyday lives for years, possibly even generations, to come. And that does it for this episode. Follow or subscribe to this podcast and share it with others that may like or benefit from the content provided. And stay tuned for any future content through this podcast, on YouTube, or on the Technomosity website, technomosity.com. That's TechnoMosity.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Technomosity. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode.